Okay, Bismillah, walhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalam ala rasulillah wal ba'd. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wa ahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Today we're going to be doing the 11th name of Allah. There's been some gap between, the last time we were here. Does anybody remember who's there in the last class? Do they remember which name we did? Was it just you? Yes. Good job. Okay, so yes, we did Al-Muhaymin. So today, huh? He what? Yes, he did. Assalamu alaikum. Just in time. So we're doing Al-Aziz today. Okay? I don't have the clicker, so I'm going to have to use the enter button. So linguistically, Al-Aziz means strength or quwwa for people who are familiar with the Arabic language. Also means severity, that is shidda, and to have the ability to overcome, so ghalba, right? So again, these are just linguistic, like in the dictionary, if you look up the word is, which is the root of Al-Aziz, then you'll see that it means quwwa, shidda, ghalba, which means strength or severity. What is the difference between strength and severity? Or do they mean the same thing?
Severity is the scale
of how strong you are, right? It's just if you're strong or not.
As opposed to
yeah. And to have the ability to overcome. So obviously you have enough strength that you cannot be overcome, right? You're always going to be on top. You're always going to, win or overcome all situations. What did I do? Okay. So Al-Aziz has been mentioned 92 times in the Quran. This is very different from the previous names that we've been doing. I think after Malik was 3 times, but I think after Rabb and Allah, this is another name that has been mentioned several times in the Quran. The names that we did in the middle, As-Salam, Al-Muhaymin, Al-Mu'min, those were only mentioned once in the Quran in Surah Al-Hashr. But Al-Aziz has been mentioned 92 times in the Quran. So some of the ayahs, girls, I get distracted very easily. I lose track of what I'm saying. So if you want to be in the classroom, then you have to be quiet. Okay? So I just picked up some of them. وَعَلُمُ أَنَّ اللَّهَ عَزِيزٌ حَكِيمٌ. And so you will know that Allah is almighty, all-wise. So Aziz over here is, it comes as mighty, almighty. Wallahu azizun dhul intiqam. For Allah is almighty, capable of punishment. And again, the Surah Al-Hashr ayah we've done a few times. Al-Muhaymin, Al-Aziz has been mentioned over there as well. So 92 times is obviously a whole lot. I haven't mentioned all of them here. But what I did want to talk about a little bit was that I'm sure all of you know, inshallah, that there's so many names in the Quran that come in pairs, right? Some of them, وَإِنَّ رَبَّكَ لَهُ الْعَزِيزُ الرَّحِيمُ. So Aziz and Rahim have come together. That إِنَّ اللَّهَ عَزِيزُ الْغَفُورُ. Aziz and Ghafur have been paired. ذَلِكَ تَقْدِيرُ الْعَزِيزُ الْعَلِيمُ. Aziz and Alim have been paired. So there's obviously a reason why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has paired, which two of His names come together. It cannot be without any purpose, right? So my aim is that when we've done enough names, then we can actually start talking about why have they been paired together. We haven't done enough names till now, but besides Al-Aziz, there is one more that we've done. I'm looking at the students who are like regulars, and they might know which name we've done already. Well, from here. So there's Aziz and Rahim, these are the two pairs. There's Aziz and Ghafur, and there's Aziz al-Alim. So Aziz we're doing today. What is another name that we've already done? Ar-Rahim. Right? So these two we've already done. So inshallah today we can take a look at what could be, or what might be, what do the Mufassirin say about Why has Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala paired these two words? What is the relationship between Al-Izz, the mighty one, and Ar-Rahim, the merciful one? Okay? So how does the name, as we do this in every class, we talk about linguistics, like what does it mean in the dictionary, and then we talk about how does this name pertain to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it means, like we said, the Almighty, the mighty one, the one who has all the strength, he has all the dominance, and he's unchallenged. He's also severe in his punishment. So there is nothing that will, or can overcome Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? There is no such thing as, I can get my way with him. Even if we want to, that's not possible. Because whatever he has planned, that is what's going to happen. So there is nothing has or will or can overcome Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the name Al-Aziz, just think of the fact that that's what it consists of. A being that has never been and will never be overcome. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Al-Fatir says, أَوَلَمْ يَسِيرُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ فَيَنْظُرُوا كَيْفَ كَانَ عَاقِبَةُ الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِهِمْ وَكَانُوا أَشَدَّ مِنْ قُوَّةٍ. Have they not traveled in the land and seen how those before them met their end, although they were superior to them in strength? The Quraysh of Makkah, they were so arrogant, right? They used to think that nobody is more powerful than them. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is addressing them and asking them, have they not traveled the earth? Have they not seen what happened to the other nations? What about Qawm Lut? Right? What about the other nations? Where did they go? What happened to them? Where did Bani Israel go? And those people were actually, they were mightier than the Quraysh. Right? So what happened to them? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is asking, what happened to them? And then he says, وَمَا كَانَ اللَّهُ لِيُعْجِزَهُ مِنْ شَيْءٍ فِي السَّمَوَاتِ وَلَا فِي الْأَرْضِ. Allah is not to be frustrated by anything in the heavens or the earth. Just look at this word, يُعْجِزَهُ. وَمَا يُعْجِزَهُ. Allah is not to be frustrated with anything in the heavens and the earth. What do you understand by the word frustration? When do we feel frustrated? When do we not feel frustrated is a better question, right? Because we're always feeling frustrated about something or the other. Yeah? Sorry.
When you sleep.
When you sleep, you're frustrated when you're sleeping?
Didn't you say? Yeah, when you're not frustrated. When you're not.
When you're not frustrated, when you're sleeping. I get frustrated with my dreams too, so I can't count myself in those. But you were saying?
I was going to say that you get frustrated when you can't control situations.
When you cannot control situations, right? When you feel like this is not within our control. And a lot of people have problems in understanding that circle. We see what is the circle of influence, what is your scope, and then things that are not in your circle of influence, but we're always trying to control those situations, and then when they don't work out the way we want them to, we get frustrated. Someone was saying something from here? Yeah.
I was going to say when things don't go our way.
When things don't go our way, right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is never frustrated with the heavens or the earth. Why? Because everything always goes His way. Why would there be a need to be frustrated with anything? Like I said, when you think about the name Al-Aziz, think about what it encompasses. The Almighty, one who can never be overcome, one who always has His way. And we know this in Ayatul Kursi also we read this, right? وَسِعَ كُرْسِيُّ السَّمَوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. His throne extends over the heavens and the earth. And have you ever come across that hadith that explains kursi? That explains...
It's a metaphor, it's not a real one.
Well, there's ikhtilaf on that. But there is ikhtilaf on that. But have you read, has anybody ever come across the concept of the throne and how vast is the throne itself? Because we're talking about the kursi, they say throne, but it's actually the footstool, right? So in the vast desert, if a ring was dropped, that ring would be the footstool. And the desert would be everything else. And that is just the size of the footstool. So imagine the size of the throne. Are you getting what I'm saying? Just the colossal, I'm talking about the depth and the breadth of his throne that is extending over the heavens and the earth. And then he says, it does not weary him to preserve both. It does not frustrate him. In one of my previous classes, I think I mentioned, and maybe Maria will remember, the story about why Sunday is the end of the week.
I do.
You remember it? You want to tell us?
Well, basically, and they're like, God is going to create, I don't remember exactly, but basically God was creating earth, and he would create Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then on Sunday he would rest.
He would rest. So the concept, that came for, obviously not a Muslim, not an Islamic concept, but the concept of a weekend in, Christianity came from the concept of, God created the heavens and the earth in 6 days, and then the 7th day he rested. Because, na'udhu God needed to rest. But we believe that, he does not get weary of anything. وَلَا يَؤُوذُهُ حِفْظُهُمَا. It does not frustrate him, it does not make him weary, because he is Al-Aziz. Sorry, I'm like trying to manage several devices at the same time. They don't let me look at my notes over here, and so I need to have like something else to look at my notes, and so I'm like always trying to like jumble. So just like we spoke about how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he cannot be overcome in matters of the heavens and the earth, right? Just like that, Allah cannot be overcome in his speech. What is Allah's speech? The Quran. Yes, Allah's speech is the Quran. So he cannot be overcome in his speech. What does that mean? So in Surah Al-Baqarah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَإِن كُنْتُمْ فِي رَيْبٍ مِمَّا نَزَّلْنَا عَلَىٰ عَبْدِنَا فَأْتُوا بِسُورَةٍ مِّن مِثْلِهِ وَادْعُوا شُهَدَاءَكُم مِّن دُونِ اللَّهِ إِن كُنْتُمْ صَادِقِينَ. So if you have doubts about the revelation we have sent down to our servant, then produce a single surah like it. Enlist whatever supporters you have other than God, if you truly think you can. So the surah, the ayah before this, in ayah 21 and 22 in Surah Al-Baqarah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the creation of the creation of the earth and the sky. And after that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about what he has revealed to his messenger. The tone or the argument is the same in both ayahs. What can anybody like think and tell me what is the commonality in both? In one ayah he's talking about the earth and the sky, and the other ayah he's talking about his speech, his word.
It can't be recreated.
Just like nobody else has the power to create the heaven and the earth, similarly, nobody has the power to come with a speech like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's. And he challenges mankind and says, if you think that, what I have sent, if you have doubts about it, then okay, call whoever you want, call all your helpers, call all your supporters, and just try to produce a single surah like it. If you truly think you can do it. So the tone is the same. Just like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cannot be overcome in the matters of the heavens and the earth, he cannot be overcome in the matters of his speech, his word. Yeah? It's not, but whenever you read the translation of the Quran, it's the translation. So the barakah is obviously going to be more in reading the Arabic text. It's a translation, so it's known that it's not going to be the same thing. But it's still not going to overcome Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's speech. Especially because of the beauty of the language itself and the way that the words have been, almost poetically, for a lack of better words, been intertwined with each other, that when you try to, for example, the previous one, it said, what was that word that we just spoke about? Frustrated, yeah, that's the one I'm looking for. And the Arabic was just يَؤُوذُهُ, I think. Yeah, no, لِيُعْجِزَهُ. It's just a small word, right? لِيُعْجِزَهُ. When I translated it, I mean, not me, but when Abdul Hakim translated it, he wrote, nothing can frustrate him. You see you know what I mean? So it's also the beauty of the language and the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has intertwined the words together. So even if Arabic is not your first language or it's not your language at all, and you're reading a translation, even then, that translation will never be able to overcome the Quran itself or Allah's word itself. Does that answer your question?
It does, and I wish more people understood that.
Yeah.
Google Translate says it means to incapacitate.
To what?
Incapacitate.
Incapacitate.
Yes.
Yeah.
See,
To
and
frustrate him.
What it does when people are speaking different languages and you have this,
Yeah.
then we come to the point of disagreement.
Right. And especially since even within the, you're looking at Google Translate, right? But the thing is, and this is something that I've learned from Imam Farhan, that whenever he always gets annoyed when I try to look up words in Google Translate when it's something to do with, if it's regular language, if I'm trying to send someone a text in Arabic and I'm just trying to check something, that's fine. But when it comes to the Quran or the Hadith, he gets very annoyed when I use Google Translate because he always says that Google Translate is not going to give you the meaning in the context. Because Google Translate does not know what's going on, right? Versus if I look at a translation of the Quran, right? Like if I look at Abdul Halim's translation or Sahih Muslim, right? There's so many different English translations, right? When I look at those translations, it's not going to be the same as Google, right? It's because those scholars have actually spent years researching and looking in context. This ayah with the previous ayah, with the one ahead, with this hadith, with that hadith, right? So again, it says incapacitate, but does it really truly give you the meaning of frustration? That's a different thing, and that's why people end up arguing or not understanding the main concept. So where were we? Okay, so we did this. We did Ayatul Kursi. All right, so we were talking about Allah's speech, right? So right after the one in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala challenges mankind and says, okay, if you think that you can bring a surah that's like this one, go on, get all your helpers, get all your supporters, and come and bring me something that's the same. Moving forward, right after that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَإِن لَمْ تَفْعَلُوا, and if you cannot do that, وَلَن تَفْعَلُوا, and you cannot do that. You see the beauty of, how we were talking about Fazia, that the beauty of the language and the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has, it's like, if you cannot do this, brackets, and you can never do it. Right? So what should you do? Then beware of the fire prepared for the disbelievers, whose fuel is men and stones. It's not like wood or coal that's going to keep the fire going. It's actually men. That's going to be the flesh of man, right? And stones, that's what's going to keep the fire going. So just like we spoke about how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Al-Aziz, He has the might, He has the honor, He has the power to create the heavens and the earth, to never be frustrated with anything that's happening, to never be overcome by it, to never be overcome in His speech. Similarly, we must know as Muslims that all honor and power, al-izz and al-quwwa, as we spoke about in the previous slide of linguistically when we were talking about it, it all comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So anyone who is seeking honor and power in this world or the hereafter should know that the only source of attaining that power or that honor is through the one who has all the honor and power, right? Who else would you go to? Would you go to the Chinese consulate for a visa to I don't know, Turkey? No, right? So you're going to go to who has it, who has the ability to give you that stamp. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Man kana yuridu al-izza falillahi izzat al-jami'a. That's it. You want you want honor and you want power? Know that all of the honor and power is with Allah and Allah alone. Whoever seeks honor and power, then let them know that all honor and power belongs to Allah. You know, sometimes people, they try to own certain objects that are symbols of power, right? Maybe a nice car. There's nothing wrong in having a nice car. We have a very nice car ourselves. It's the intention behind. Yes, our car is nice. Okay. Yes. He's like, really? Well, that's because you guys haven't vacuumed it, but that's not the point.
How do you define a nice car?
I mean, it serves our purpose. I like driving it. It takes 8 people. I think that's great for a family car. So it's no like,
No Mercedes.
Mercedes, yeah. So you know what I mean? Like, there's nothing wrong in having a nice car. It's actually the niyyah, right? It's the intention. But what I'm talking about is that, you know, when people start wanting to own all those worldly possessions just for the sake of a show of power, right? Like, I have this brand, I carry this bag, I wear these shoes, only to, you know, show off, as you'd say, right? Some people also try to make friends with certain people just for the sake of status, right? That, oh, I know Fulan and Fulan. Girls, you're distracting me again. We've already spoken about this. Any cross talks and you go out. Yeah. Yeah, I have severe attention deficit disorder. So if you guys start talking, then I'm just going to lose what I was saying. Okay? So, as I was saying, some people also like to have, you know, they make friends with certain people just for the sake of, you know, for the status symbol, or just so that they can get certain things from those people, right? The people in like, you know, who are in governance, maybe becoming friends with senators, for example, or different kinds of people in the government, just so that you can have that kind of power and honor. So obviously, those people should know that all power and honor comes from Allah. It doesn't come from anyone else, right? So how can you get, like, we obviously we know that all power, we're trying to understand that all power and honor comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So what are the ways that you can attain that power or honor from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? What are some of the ways you can get honor from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala?
I would say by loving Him,
Mm-hmm.
by loving Allah, by showing Him that you love Him. And
How do you show your love? You know how, have you heard, like, love is not a noun, it's a verb,
Yeah,
right?
it's an action.
It's a verb. It's sounds like, what? Sorry. You know, you should have known before you sat in my class, I always pick on my kids. Yeah. So, yes.
Yeah, we're doing things for the sake of Allah, and the
But-
intention is always for the sake of
Exactly. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I mean, isn't He amazing? He always also gives us the answers in the Quran, right? Like, you know, you want honor, you want power, well, here's what you have to do. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Fatir, إِلَيْهِ يَسْعَدُ الْكَلَامُ الطَّيِّبُ وَالْعَمَلُ الصَّالِحُ يَرْفَعُهُ. Good words. Okay, al-kalam al-tayyib. Good words. Good words can also mean, okay, I'll let you guys think. What do you think is a good word?
What's the question?
Good word.
being
Good words.
Oh.
Kalam al-tayyib.
being kind and
So kind words.
to everyone.
What else? Dhikr. Compliments. Kindness. Right? You're looking so pretty today. And also dhikr. Dhikr itself, right? Remembrance of Allah. That's a kalam al-tayyib. Remembering Allah. Du'as, right? The tasbih that you do, Alhamdulillah, Subhanallah, Allahu Akbar that you read after Salah, any du'as you read, any surahs you read, you know, before you go to bed, all those things, they count as tayyib, kalam al-tayyib. You have a question, Fazia?
Yeah, I was thinking, I don't know if this fits in
Mm-hmm.
between words, but like if somebody's irritating you or you're frustrated with them, but you don't
And you hold your silence, right? You hold your peace.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So it might not be counted in a kalam al-tayyib, it might be an amal al-salih. It might be a righteous deed that you're staying silent,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Can we say sadaqah because I feel like sadaqah
Yes.
includes all of it.
Sadaqah includes all of it. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling you that if you want power, to be able to go to Jannah, and if you want honor in this life and the hereafter, two simple things: kalam at-tayyib, good words, and amal as-salih, righteous deeds. Right? So there are different opinions about this word, yarfa'u. What is rising what? There's a difference of opinion in what is the pronoun, what is it referring to? Do good deeds make your dhikr or your good words acceptable? Or do good words make your good deeds acceptable? Do you understand the question?
It's a combination actually.
So the Mufassirin have two different opinions on this, right? It could be either or. So a good word does not get accepted without a good deed, or a good deed does not get accepted without a good word. And the Mufassirin, there's like a divide in them, right? Some believe that any good deed will not be accepted, without dhikr or a good word, because that's what's going to rise the good deed up. And other scholars believe that a good deed is what's going to back up your dhikr. Okay? So maybe it's out of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's wisdom that He hasn't made it clear what rises what, so that we would be encouraged to do both. Right? So maybe that is one of His wisdoms, why it's not clear what rises what. Moving forward, there's a hadith. Again, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us how to get, and you were talking about sadaqah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us how do we get honor. So Abu Hurairah reported, Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Well does not diminish by giving sadaqah. Allah augments the honor of one who forgives and one who serves another seeking the pleasure of Allah." So there are three different acts that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioning. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is mentioning over here that can be ways of increasing your honor. One is sadaqah, the other is one who forgives, right? And this could be related to, what Fazia was saying, that you just stay silent, you just stay quiet, and you forgive the other person for, annoying you and irritating you, and you don't talk back. And then one who seeks the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So these are other ways of how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can increase your ranks. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, الَّذِينَ يَتَّخِذُونَ الْكَافِرِينَ أَوْلِيَاءَ مِن دُونِ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ أَيَبْتَغُونَ عِندَهُمُ الْعِزَّةَ فَإِنَّ الْعِزَّةَ لِلَّهِ جَمِيعًا. Those who ally themselves with the disbelievers rather than the believers, seek power through them. In reality, all power is God's to give. What does the word ally mean? Does anybody know who is an ally? Yeah. Someone who you can support or someone who you can help, right? So someone who you're linked to, someone who you're associated with in terms of being their helper. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is asking that those people who take allies or who make supporters in the disbelievers, are they trying to get honor through them?
Not necessarily.
So what kind of help is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talking about? Sometimes, we as Muslims, we sometimes get too harsh on this. Like if you see like a non-Muslim, in an accident, or maybe they fell, are you going to be like, oh, I'm not supposed to help you and walk off? That's not what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying. What kind of support are we talking about over here? What kind of support are you not supposed to give to them? When it comes to helping them aid their religion, right? Like if you start distributing flyers, helping the church out, that's supporting them. That's, taking them as an ally. Yeah, Fazia.
Okay, so I'm worried about this because I do interfaith.
Yeah.
Also, if you have people who are gay, can I say that word or is that a bad word?
This is a safe space. It's okay. You can say whatever you want.
Yelled at her so many. Okay, so if your teacher is gay, and you're supposed to work with them, or in my work, the church down the street, the minister is, and we are partners with them.
So there are a couple of things over here. When you're talking about somebody being a homosexual, we're not talking about them being disbelievers, because somebody could be a believer and homosexual.
Yeah, we have them in the mission.
Right?
We have
Okay.
them in the mission.
Yeah, so just because a disbeliever is someone who's a kafir, we are so good at labeling people. We are so good at labeling people. There is a difference between one who's sinning and there's a difference between one who is a disbeliever. Please, this is a huge difference. Just because someone is sinning, it does not take them out of the circle of Islam. When you call somebody a kafir, that means that you're saying that they don't believe in Allah and His Messenger.
No, because people don't go to the interfaith events because they say they're Catholics.
Okay, so that's the other thing. So one, I just wanted to say that when we talk about homosexuality, that's a different, yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
So are you saying that you can be gay and Muslim?
You can what?
What?
There are people who are gay and they're Muslim.
Well, they are.
I mean, you should not. That's a different story, right? But can it happen? Is it possible? Yeah.
I don't think they understand.
That's okay. Yeah. So I don't think they understand.
Yeah, it's a sin. It doesn't mean it's okay.
That doesn't mean it's okay. Okay, I'll give you another example. No, it's not okay. So I'll give you another example. Well, my son and I were having, not this one, another son of mine, we were having a conversation, and they said that he was saying something about, I prayed, he had gone to some friend's house, and when he came back, I said, what happened? Did you pray Asr and Maghrib, etc.? So he's like, yeah, I prayed Maghrib with my friend and his father led. So I said, and I almost said this to myself, alhamdulillah, they're into Salah, So he said, what do you mean they're into Salah? They're Muslims, obviously they pray. So I said, well, sometimes there are Muslims who don't pray. Yeah. And he was like, why would you be a Muslim then? Because, underexposed, poor child of mine, he's like, why would you be a Muslim? But I understand what she's trying to say, like, how can you be a Muslim and, do something that's so openly but that's the thing, we can't just take them out of the circle of the fold of Islam, but that's a different discussion. Coming back to this, that we were talking about, the thing about the interfaith that you're saying, see, that's very important because, my husband does interfaith work too all the time, right? So how do you take part in interfaith activities while still upholding your stance, right? And that's the tricky thing. Whenever, as far as I've seen the interfaith events, I don't think that anybody over there is going and saying, your religion is better than mine, to the pastor or the Jews, right? Yeah. But you are still working with them, and I know there are certain sects that they say that it's haram to work with non-Muslims.
The reformers.
Yeah, you cannot work with them. We, living in this country, if that's how it is, why did you come to this country? If you didn't want to interact with non-Muslims, why are you here? Why did you migrate, or why did you choose to be here? But there's so many other Muslim countries, please go. It does not make sense. You have been put here for a reason. You're not supposed to be standing in the sidelines and watching everything happen. You're supposed to be there in the middle, in the ground. I truly believe that. That is, I think, the only reason that motivated me to like go back to graduate school when I moved here, because I didn't want to be sidelined. I didn't want to like stay home and do nothing. Or it's not that I'm looking down upon staying at home and doing nothing, but I felt like I'm not going to add any value. I need to be doing things. I need people to see me doing things so that they know what Muslims are like, right? But the point I was trying to make was that sometimes there are different kinds of people, right? Some people, they go on to one extreme and they just don't want to have anything to do with any non-believer, right? There's some people, actually, who it's the other way around with them. They are going to be kinder and nicer and more, more polite, more well-behaved with the non-Muslims. So what do you think about the people who you meet? Yeah.
Yeah, because the Prophet ﷺ was an example when he was nice to the Jewish neighbor.
He was, but he was also nice to the Muslims, right? He didn't differentiate. It wasn't like he was rude to the Muslims because they're just our buddies and he was kinder to them. Like I was going to say, yes, Maria?
If you're but you should be nice to them, but because to make a good example for Muslims.
Exactly, which is true. You should do that. There is no doubt about that. But does that mean that you should not make the same effort for your Muslim brothers and sisters? You should make the same effort, right? Do you feel any difference in the manners that you see when you go to Giant or Walgreens versus when you go to Halalco?
Generally, no.
It smells funnier.
Well, that's a different story. But I swear, the other day in Halalco, this happened with me and I was so frustrated. I opened the door, like what would happen if, for example, you went to TJ Maxx or whatever, okay? You are walking out, you open the door and you hold it open.
Yeah.
What would you expect?
Thank you.
Well, no, but what you'd expect is that the person behind you will hold it
Yeah.
and you'll leave, right? Well, guess what happened in Halalco?
Doesn't happen.
I opened the door and the lady walked past me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's not what was supposed to happen. You were supposed to hold the door so that I would go out and then you'd follow me, right?
I would just say you're welcome.
Well, and I see this another example that I don't even know if this, sometimes my examples, they make sense in my head, but then they might not to you when I say them out loud. But so I think the men are better organized and maybe they have more years of training when they make the sufuf.
Yes.
I have a lot of things to say.
So when we make the sufuf,
Yes, yeah.
I noticed this about myself the other day, and this has nothing to do with believers and disbelievers. The point I'm trying to make is that you start treating people who are closer to you in a different way than how you treat people who are not close to you. For example, when I'm standing in Salah and if there's a lady a little, like there's a distance is more and I want her to come close to me, I lightly touch her elbow and then I just do this, right? If it's my daughters, I just hold them by the elbow and I pull them toward me,
Yeah.
right? The other day I was in Salah and my daughter held my elbow and yanked me toward her because that's what she's learned from me. And I, kind of like jolted and then I was like, that is so awkward. Like, why is she doing that? And then I realized that's what I've taught her. That's what I've done to her every time, right? So what example am I setting? Like, just because she's I have power over my own, kin. So I can just yank them to me versus if I'll be really nice and gentle to someone who I don't know. You understand the connection I'm trying to make here? It's very important that if you, be kind to the disbelievers, especially here, living here, go out of your way for them. But also don't forget your Muslim brothers and sisters. They actually have more haqq over you. They actually have more rights over you, right? And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala goes on to say that all power belongs to the messengers, the prophets, and the believers. So just couple of more slides and we'll be done. Today I think it went on more than usual. So I remember I said that we'll be talking about why it's come in combination. So over here it's Aziz and Rahim that are together. So what do they mean? So, sorry. Aziz is Almighty, okay? And Rahim is the most merciful. So that means Aziz fi rahmatihi. So he is mighty in his mercy. Wa Rahim fi izzatihi. Does anybody understand that?
What do you mean?
Merciful in his.
So there is mercy in his might. There is mercy in his might. Might is, in the beginning we spoke about it. It's about someone who cannot be overcome. He's mighty in strength and he's mighty in dominance. Okay? So just think about like the most powerful, the most, what is the word for might? Another word for might? Anybody? So somebody who's, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the most powerful in terms of his strength and his dominance. Because he dominates everything.
Encompassing, I don't know.
Okay? Does that make sense?
It would apply to Hitler at his time,
Yes.
for example.
Right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so when you think about why has Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, put these two together? Almighty and merciful. Aziz and Rahim. So there is, think about this, there is might in his mercy and there is mercy in his might. Think about it a little more, okay? So for example, when you talk about there is mercy in his might. So when he punished Qawm Lut, or other kinds of calamities that befall people,
The
earthquakes in Turkey and Syria, yes, it was, we don't know if it was a punishment or ibra or whatever it was, but it was his might, right? It was his strength, it was his dominance. It was the fact that no one has control over anything except him. Even in that might, there was mercy. And we've spoken about this in the previous classes, that sometimes we can't see the mercy, right? Sometimes something happens and we don't understand why it happened. But there is some khair in every bad thing, and only Allah knows what it is. Sometimes we see it, sometimes we don't. But that's the iman, that's where we are tested, right? But just think of it this way, and I think someone said this in the previous classes when we spoke about this, that it could have been worse. So that's the mercy in the might. Yeah.
That's what the ayah applies. لا يكلف الله نفسا
Illa wus'aha, right? So it could have been worse. His might could have been worse, but it's not. Why? Because there's mercy in his might. Okay? And there is might in his mercy. What does that mean? When he's merciful, he just gives. Just without, biduna hisab. Without any, it's such a silly example, but I have to bring it up. A few weeks back, you're laughing because almost all my examples are silly. But he's like, I've heard all of them. So, but this is a new one. So a few weeks back, our washer broke. I don't know what happened to it, but it wasn't draining. So there was just water inside and we couldn't, and my in-laws were over and my father-in-law and I were like tugging at it, and we were scared because if we'd open it, all the water would come out. It was a huge washer problem. Anyway, we had to wait for another one to come. It took more than a week, and it was a huge hot mess with 6 people in the house. How much laundry would we had? Anyway, the new one came, Farhan installed it, everything looked good. And then I'm just sitting looking at both the washer and the dryer, and I'm like, they don't match anymore. Because they were part of the same set, right? The washer and the dryer were part of the same set. And now I have a different colored washer. Well, the color was slightly the same, but the style, that was front load, that was top load, it wasn't matching. And I was like, Huh?
Is that OCD?
Well, yeah, that's me. But I was like, it doesn't match. I was like, oh, it doesn't match. I mean, it's a little tall, short, front, back. Oh, I wish I had a new dryer too. And wallahi, 2 days later, the belt of the dryer, it burnt out. And we had to get a new dryer. Okay, now it matches. Because when Farhan was ordering, I was like, can you make sure it's like from the same set as the washer? So, long story short, it's something so silly. Like, it really, it was functional. But it's those little things, It's just that in his mercy, there's might. He just gives, without any accountability. He just gives to you what you want. So, and then they say, this is actually Abdul Razak's, I should have written quote unquote, but he says, so Aziz fi rahmatihi wa Rahim fi izzatihi wa hadha huwa al-kamal. And that is perfection. When we talk about human beings, are we ever able to met out the right amount of mercy and the right amount of punishment? No, right? My kids, the last thing they want to do is take any of their arguments to their father. Why? Because the punishment is never going to match what the deal was. Like if they're fighting over the remote, Farhan will just come and take the remote away. That's it. Intaha al-kalam. Like just keep fighting, it's not there anymore. Right? Or you're grounded for 2 weeks straight. So it's never going to match. Right? And then when it comes to being merciful, sometimes we're like, oh, it's okay, they're just kids. It's okay if they're lying. It's okay if they lied about praying, and they didn't really. Right? Because you're just like, oh, But the kamal, the perfection, who can be perfect in being Aziz and being Rahim at the same time? Who can it be except Al-Aziz and Al-Rahim? Who can it be? Right? So, lastly, sorry, the class went overtime today. So we always do a dua afterward that has like the word, the name of Allah. So the one I have today is La ilaha illallah. There is no God but Allah. Al-Wahid Al-Qahhar, the one and the compeller. Rabbis samawati wal ard, Lord of the heavens and the earth. Wa ma bainahum, and whatever is in between the heavens and the earth. Al-Aziz Al-Ghaffar. The other one that I found was Rabbana. It's a Surah Al-Ghafir. Rabbana وَأَدْخِلْهُمْ جَنَّاتِ عَدْنٍ الَّتِي وَعَدْتَهُمْ وَمِنْ صَلَحَ مِنْ أَبَائِهِمْ وَأَزْوَاجِهِمْ وَذُرِّيَّاتِهِمْ إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ الْعَزِيزُ الْحَكِيمُ. Do you know who is making this dua? The angels are making it for us. The ayah before this, in Ghafir 7, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the angels who carry His throne. Okay? The ones who carry His throne, they say, forgive the people who believe in you and His messenger. Forgive them. And admit them, Lord, to the lasting gardens you have promised them, together with their righteous ancestors, spouses and offspring. You alone are the Almighty, the All-Wise. It said when we get to Jannah, we're going to say, where is my family? Where is my father? Where is my son? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala might say, well, their deeds did not match yours. But if at that time, some, hadith say that if you ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they will raise your family's ranks just so that you can be happy. Just so that you can be with them. So, on that note, that's all I have for today. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليه. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I don't know if anybody came late, but if anybody wants to be in this WhatsApp group, they can use the link.